In this video, I want to show you how to set up your Photoshop file for a website design project. We'll be using artboards for each device we'll be designing for, so that you can have each layout in both desktop and responsive forms in one file. That should give you and the front-end developer who will be chopping your designs quick access and excellent overview of how the site should react to resolution changes. Okay, let's get going. You'll want to create a new file, hit the Web tab and choose the large web template. This will be the base for our design. We'll be using the 1920 pixel resolution as our default, but if you need to create a website with a different base resolution, just change the width of your file. Don't worry about the height for now. Make sure that you have Artboards checked and that you'll be working with a document in the RGB color space and 72 pixels per inch resolution. Name your document something. I'll go with an incredibly sophisticated name of website template, then hit create. Now that we have our file created, we need to add artboards for all the other resolutions we'll need for the project. For this tutorial, we'll go for the 4 default ones I normally use. A 1920 pixel one, which we already have, a 1280 pixel one for smaller desktops and laptops, a 768 pixel one, which is a common viewport for 10-inch tablets in portrait mode, and a 320 pixel one, which is a viewport for phones. You've no doubt noticed that I've mentioned viewports instead of resolution. Because mobile devices have all kinds of screen resolutions and pixel densities, to unify how websites are displayed, browsers use viewports, a sort of simulated resolution, to render them. So for tablets and phones, you design for a viewport instead of an actual screen resolution. Anyway, let's get back to our file. To create an additional artboard, pick the Artboard tool or hit V for the Move tool, then click the edge of the artboard and you'll see small buttons with plus signs. Pick one and click it. I tend to go from left to right as this works well for widescreen monitors, but you can choose whichever side you fancy. Once you add the second artboard, you'll want to resize it to your desired resolution. So select the second artboard, open the Properties panel and change its width to 1280 pixels. Now repeat the process 2 more times, with changing the width to 768 pixels for the third and 320 pixels for the last artboard. Now double tap the hand tool to see all artboards on the screen. What I like to do now is to rename the artboards to something more meaningful. To change the artboard's name, double-click it in the Layers panel and type in whatever you want. I like to name my artboards based on the device and page template. So if I'm working on the home page, for example, the artboards would be called Home Desktop Large, Home Desktop Small, Home Tablet, and Home Phone. Since we have all our artboards created and named, the last thing for this tutorial will be to create a design grid for each of them. I would recommend talking to your front-end developer about which grid system they'll be using for building the site, or if they'll be using one at all, and basing your grid on that. For the purpose of this tutorial, we'll go with a 12-column grid with 30 pixel gutters. This will work well for Bootstrap and Foundation frameworks as both use 12-unit systems. To set up our grid, we need to select the first artboard and go to View, and then select the New Guide Layout option. Once you have the window open, select the 12-column preset from the drop-down, then change the gutter size to 30 pixels. Why 30? Well, Bootstrap uses 15 pixel padding on the left and right side of its containers, so side by side that creates a 30 pixel gap. I'll get into front-end frameworks in a future tutorial, so you'll just have to take my word for it for now. Anyway, that 15 pixel padding also means that we need 15 pixel margins on the left and right side of our grid. So check the margins box, delete the values from the top and bottom fields, and change the left and right ones to 15 pixels and hit OK. We'll need to repeat the process for each artboard, but the values will be saved, so it should be quick. There's one thing I usually adjust at this point, however. Because it's very unlikely that the tablet and phone versions of the site will use one-column elements, I reduce the number of columns for those two artboards. I go with a 6-column layout for the tablet, which is half of the 12-column one, and a 4-column layout for the phone, which is a third of the 12-column one. Since the site will be coded on 12 columns regardless of the device, I just want to keep the calculations as straightforward as possible. There are two reasons why I do that. The first, I've already mentioned. On such small screens, elements that would only occupy 1/12 of their width would not be very good for usability. Second, the smaller artboards will be easier to work with a less dense grid. The last thing I do is locking all the guides. That way I don't mess up the grids by accident. Go to View and hit Lock Guides, or press Alt Ctrl and semicolon for PC users, or Option Command and semicolon for Mac users. And that's it. You have your file set up. I hope you found this short tutorial useful. If you have, consider leaving a like, posting a comment, or subscribing to the channel. Next time, I'll show you how to use Adobe CC libraries to greatly improve your workflow for your web design projects. Until then, take care and have fun designing!